What if I told you that the greatest sporting event on Earth almost never happened? That the tournament we now call the FIFA World Cup was once laughed at, doubted, and nearly destroyed before it even began. Picture this: a 17-year-old boy weeping tears of joy on a pitch in Sweden. A stadium of 200,000 fans falling completely silent in Rio de Janeiro. A man hiding a golden trophy in a shoebox beneath his bed to save it from Nazi soldiers. One hand reaching toward the sky in Mexico City, changing football forever. From its impossible beginnings to the most watched event in human history, the FIFA World Cup is not just a football tournament, it is the greatest story ever told through sport. 92 years, 22 tournaments, billions of hearts, one trophy. This is the complete history of the FIFA World Cup. And it starts where all great stories start, with one man who refused to give up. But before those legendary moments existed, the world was a very different place. Football was spreading like wildfire across continents, capturing hearts in Europe, South America, and beyond. People were falling in love with the beautiful game, yet there was no single stage where nations could truly compete against one another for global glory. The Olympics offered football, yes, but it came with serious limitations. Only amateur players were allowed to participate, meaning the very best footballers on the planet were excluded entirely. It felt incomplete, almost unfair. The sport was growing too fast, too passionately, to be contained within those restrictions. Fans wanted more. Players deserved more. The world was crying out for something monumental, something that could bring every nation together under one tournament, one dream, one undeniable purpose. Football needed its ultimate stage, and someone somewhere was already beginning to imagine exactly that. Enter Jules Rimet, the man who dared to dream bigger than anyone before him. Born in France in 1865, Rimet became FIFA president in 1921 and immediately set his sights on something extraordinary. A global football tournament open to every nation on earth, amateur and professional alike. Rimet believed football had the power to unite humanity. He envisioned stadiums filled with nations competing not in war, but in sport. But not everyone shared his vision. Football associations across Europe pushed back hard. They called it impractical, too expensive, too complicated to organize. Who would travel thousands of miles just to kick a ball? But Rimet refused to surrender his dream. For nearly a decade he lobbied, negotiated, and fought tirelessly through boardrooms and bitter disagreements, slowly convincing the football world that this tournament was not just possible, it was absolutely necessary. Jules Rimet's dream finally became reality in 1930. Uruguay was chosen as the host nation, proudly celebrating its centenary of independence. It was a fitting stage for football's grandest new experiment. But getting there was no simple feat. European teams faced an extraordinary challenge just to participate. They had to sail across the Atlantic Ocean, spending weeks at sea before even kicking a ball. Despite the enormous effort required, 13 nations answered the call. 7 came from South America, 4 from Europe, and 2 from North America. It was a modest gathering by today's standards, but what it represented was monumental. For the very first time in history, nations from across the globe were competing under one unified tournament, one shared dream. The world was watching something entirely new being born, rough around the edges, uncertain in scale, but absolutely electric in spirit. Football's greatest stage had officially opened its curtains. The stage was set. July 30th, 1930. Estadio Centenario, Montevideo, Uruguay. Over 90,000 fans packed the stadium, buzzing with electricity and national pride. On one side stood Uruguay, the hosts, the dreamers. On the other, Argentina, their fiercest rivals from just across the Rio de la Plata River. This was more than a football match. This was a battle for South American supremacy, broadcast to a world still learning what the FIFA World Cup even meant. Argentina struck first, leading 2-1 at halftime, but Uruguay refused to surrender on home soil. They roared back in the second half, scoring 3 unanswered goals to win 4-2. The crowd erupted, players wept, a nation celebrated through the night. Uruguay became the first ever FIFA World Cup champions. And for the very first time in history, the Jules Rimet trophy was lifted toward the sky, beginning a legacy that would echo through generations. Building on Uruguay's triumph, the World Cup moved to Europe, and the political landscape would shape everything that followed. In 1934, Italy hosted the tournament under the watchful eye of dictator Benito Mussolini, who saw football as a powerful propaganda tool. The Azzurri, fueled by intense national pressure and home advantage, claimed the title, defeating Czechoslovakia in the final. 4 years later, in 1938, Italy travelled to France and defended their crown, becoming the first nation to win back-to-back World Cup titles. But something felt different about that tournament. Across Europe, storm clouds were gathering. Adolf Hitler's Germany was expanding aggressively, political tensions were reaching a breaking point, and many feared what was coming. Players competed, knowing the world outside the stadium was fracturing. The 1938 World Cup would prove to be the last for 12 long, devastating years, as the darkest chapter in human history was about to begin. With 2 back-to-back World Cup titles secured, football seemed unstoppable. But then the world itself broke apart. World War II brought everything to a halt. The 1942 and 1946 World Cups were cancelled entirely, leaving a devastating 12-year gap in football history. Nations were at war, stadiums fell silent, and the beautiful game was forced to pause. But here is where the story gets truly extraordinary. As Nazi forces swept through Europe, FIFA Vice President Ottorino Barassi made a decision that could have cost him everything. He secretly removed the Jules Rimet trophy from a bank vault in Rome, wrapped it carefully, placed it inside a simple shoebox, and hid it under his bed for the entire duration of the war. No announcements, no security detail, just one man protecting football's most precious symbol from falling into enemy hands. That trophy survived the war, and so did the World Cup. With the war finally over, football was ready to reclaim its place in the world. Brazil hosted the 1950 World Cup, the first tournament in 12 long years. To mark the occasion, Brazil constructed the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, a colossal arena capable of holding nearly 200,000 people. The atmosphere was electric. Brazil were the overwhelming favourites, playing breathtaking football throughout the tournament. Then came the final match against Uruguay. Brazil only needed a draw to be crowned champions. Nearly 200,000 fans packed the Maracanã, expecting a coronation. What they witnessed instead was heartbreak. Uruguay, composed and relentless, fought back from a goal down to win 2-1. The stadium fell completely silent. Grown men wept in the stands. Players collapsed on the pitch. Brazil entered national mourning overnight. The Maracanazo, as it became known, remains one of the greatest upsets in sporting history, a moment that still haunts Brazil to this very day. From the heartbreak of the Maracanazo, football needed a new story, and in 1954 West Germany delivered one. Facing the seemingly unstoppable Hungary, unbeaten in 4 years, West Germany pulled off one of the greatest upsets ever witnessed. The miracle of Bern, as it became known, gave a war-torn nation something to believe in again. But if 1954 belonged to West Germany, 1958 belonged to one extraordinary teenager, Edson Arantes do Nascimento. The world would come to know him simply as Pelé. Just 17 years old, playing in his first World Cup in Sweden, Pelé was unlike anything football had ever seen. Explosive, graceful, and impossibly gifted, he scored 6 goals across the tournament, including a stunning hat-trick in the semi-final. In the final against host nation Sweden, Brazil won 5-2. Pelé wept on the pitch. Brazil had their first world title, and football had found its greatest ever player. Brazil carried their golden momentum into the 1962 World Cup in Chile, clinching their second consecutive title despite losing Pelé to injury early in the tournament. It proved that Brazil's greatness extended far beyond one man. They were a complete footballing machine. Then came 1966 in England, and before a single match was even played, football's most dramatic off-field story unfolded. The Jules Rimet trophy was stolen while on public display in London. The entire football world held its breath. Days later, a dog named Pickles miraculously sniffed out the trophy wrapped in newspaper beneath a garden hedge. You genuinely cannot make this up. With the trophy safely recovered, the tournament began, and England seized their moment on home soil. Geoff Hurst's legendary hat-trick in the final against West Germany sealed a 4-2 victory at Wembley, giving England their one and only World Cup title, a moment their fans still cherish today. From the moment the 1970 World Cup kicked off in Mexico, it was clear something extraordinary was unfolding. Brazil arrived with what many still call the greatest squad ever assembled: Pelé, Jairzinho, Tostão, Rivellino, and Carlos Alberto. A collection of talent so breathtaking it felt almost unfair. They did not just win matches, they painted them. Every touch, every pass, every goal was a masterpiece of the beautiful game. Jairzinho became the only player in World Cup history to score in every single match of a tournament. Brazil defeated Italy 4-1 in the final, delivering a performance for the ages. That victory was not just a championship, it was history. Having won 3 World Cups, Brazil permanently kept the Jules Rimet trophy, retiring it forever. The golden era of football had reached its absolute peak, and the world had witnessed something it would never forget. As Brazil's golden era faded, a new philosophy emerged. The Netherlands introduced total football in the 1970s, a revolutionary system where every player could occupy any position fluidly. Though the Dutch never won, their influence was undeniable. West Germany capitalized on this era, winning in 1974 on home soil. Then came Argentina's controversial 1978 triumph, shrouded in political tension under a military dictatorship, with accusations of match manipulation haunting that victory to this day. But nothing could prepare the world for 1986 Mexico. Diego Maradona arrived like a force of nature. In a single quarter-final match against England, he produced both the most infamous and most beautiful goals ever scored. First, the hand of God, where Maradona punched the ball into the net with his fist, deceiving the referee completely. Then, minutes later, the goal of the century, where he dribbled past 5 English players across 60 meters of pure genius. Coming off Maradona's magic, in 1986, the 1990 World Cup in Italy brought a very different kind of football, defensive, grinding, and tactical. West Germany, led by Lothar Matthaus, navigated through the tournament with ruthless efficiency. The final against Argentina was settled by a single penalty, handing West Germany their 3rd world title. It was effective, but far from beautiful. Then came 1994, and the United States hosted the World Cup for the very first time. Brazil returned to their throne, winning their 4th world title, but the final against Italy wasn't decided by flowing football. it went to penalties. And then came the moment that broke millions of hearts. Roberto Baggio, Italy's golden ponytail, stepped up needing to score. He struck the ball, it sailed over the crossbar. Brazil were champions. Baggio stood alone, head bowed, in one of sport's most devastating images ever captured. The 1998 World Cup in France marked a turning point in football history. A nation united behind their own, and at the heart of it all was Zinedine Zidane. The Marseille-born midfielder, son of Algerian immigrants, rose to global stardom with two towering headers in the final against Brazil, handing France a 3-0 victory and their first ever World Cup title. It was a moment of national pride that transcended football entirely. Then came 2002, a tournament unlike any before it. For the first time in history, the World Cup was held in Asia, jointly hosted by South Korea and Japan. Traditional powerhouses stumbled early, but Brazil had a different story to tell. Ronaldo, who had suffered a mysterious seizure before the 1998 final, returned 4 years later as a man reborn. He scored twice against Germany in the final, completing one of football's greatest comeback stories and delivering Brazil their 5th world title. The 2006 World Cup in Germany delivered one of football's most unforgettable moments, not for a goal, but for a headbutt. In his very last professional match, French legend Zinedine Zidane headbutted Italy's Marco Materazzi in extra time of the final, receiving a red card and walking off the pitch forever in disgrace. Italy held their nerve, winning on penalties to claim their 4th World Cup title. It remains one of the most talked about moments in football history. Then came 2010. South Africa hosted the first ever World Cup on African soil, with the sound of vuvuzelas filling every stadium. Spain arrived playing a brand of football the world had never quite seen, tiki-taka, a mesmerizing style built on short passing and total possession control. Andres Iniesta's extra-time winner in the final against Netherlands crowned Spain as world champions for the very first time. From Spain's triumph in South Africa, the World Cup returned to South America in 2014, landing in Brazil, a nation that breathes football like oxygen. The stage was set for a fairy tale. Instead, it became a nightmare. In the semi-final at Belo Horizonte's Estadio Mineirão, Germany dismantled Brazil in one of the most shocking results in football history, 7-1. The host nation, without the injured Neymar, collapsed completely. The world watched in disbelief as Brazilian fans wept openly in the stands. The Mineirazo, as it became known, scarred an entire nation overnight, but Germany marched forward, composed and clinical. In the final against Argentina, the match stretched into extra time. Then came Mario Götze, controlling a cross and volleying home in the 113th minute. Germany had their 4th World Cup star. Die Mannschaft were champions of the world. From the ashes of Brazil's heartbreak, the World Cup moved to Russia in 2018, and a new era was born. France arrived as favourites, armed with extraordinary talent, pace and depth. But it was 19-year-old Kylian Mbappe who truly stole the show, becoming only the 2nd teenager after Pelé to score in a World Cup final. His electric pace, clinical finishing and fearless mentality announced him as the next global superstar. The tournament itself was full of drama. Germany, the defending champions, crashed out in the group stage. Argentina struggled, Spain imploded, and Croatia's remarkable run to the final captured hearts worldwide. France ultimately triumphed 4-2 against Croatia, claiming their 2nd World Cup title. The 2018 tournament also shattered viewership records globally, proving that the World Cup's reach was expanding far beyond traditional football nations, touching every corner of the planet. Then came Qatar 2022, the first World Cup ever held in the Middle East, and for the first time in history, played during winter. It was a tournament unlike anything before it, full of stunning upsets, emotional moments, and breathtaking football. But everything built toward one single moment, the final between Argentina and France. What followed was arguably the greatest match in World Cup history. France fought back twice, Kylian Mbappé scored a hat-trick, and the game went to penalties. The tension was unbearable. Then Lionel Messi, the man who had carried football on his shoulders for 2 decades, lifted the golden trophy into the Lusail night sky. The debate was over. The one trophy that had eluded him, the one missing piece, was finally his. Messi had his World Cup. His legacy was complete. The greatest of all time had his moment, and the world wept with joy. 92 years, that is how long this tournament has been weaving itself into the fabric of human civilization. Think about that for a moment. Generations of grandparents, parents and children have all gathered around screens, radios and stadium terraces, united by the same beautiful game. The FIFA World Cup was never just about football. It was about identity. It was about pride. It was about belonging to something far greater than yourself. It gave small nations a stage to roar. It gave struggling communities a reason to believe. It turned ordinary players into eternal legends. It stopped wars, if only for 90 minutes. From that first ball kicked in Montevideo in 1930 to Messi lifting the golden trophy in Lusail in 2022, every single moment has been permanently etched into human memory. And now, as we stand at the edge of a brand new chapter, the question is no longer where the World Cup has been. The question is where it is going next. And now the next chapter is almost here. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is set to be the biggest, most spectacular tournament ever staged in the history of football. For the first time ever, 3 nations will share the honor of hosting: the United States, Canada, and Mexico, spanning an entire continent. And for the first time ever, 48 nations will compete, 48 stories, 48 dreams, 48 chances to make history. New heroes will emerge. New heartbreaks will be written. New moments will be burned into the memory of billions. Somewhere out there, a young player is preparing to become the next Pelé, the next Maradona, the next Messi. Somewhere, a nation is dreaming of lifting that golden trophy for the very first time. 92 years of history has brought us here. So ask yourself, who will be the next nation to etch their name into football history forever? The next chapter is about to be written. Are you ready?